I'd like to call to order the Board of Supervisors meeting for Monday, September 21st, 2020 at 7 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call to establish a quorum, Amy.
Supervisor Mark Hain.
Here.
Supervisor Derek Daniil.
Here.
Supervisor Linda Waite. Here. Chairman Dan Wolfel.
Here.
Supervisor Jeannie Vogel. Here.
We have a quorum. Meet and greet. We all know one another, so since our attendance this evening is minimal, we will not have public participation. All right. Next item on the agenda would be to adopt the agenda. I assume it was properly noticed as usual.
The agenda has been properly noticed.
I
All
will move to adopt the agenda for this evening, Monday, September 21st, 2020, as noticed.
All right, motion by Linda,
I'll second that.
second by Jeannie, to adopt the agenda for our meeting this evening. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no one, motion carried. Approval of minutes from the Board of Supervisors meeting from August 17th, 2020.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of the Board of Supervisors meeting of August 17th, 2020.
Motion by Mark, second by Jeannie to approve the Board of Supervisors meeting minutes from Monday, August 17th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, approved. All right. Pending business. The only piece of pending business is the billboard considerations and guidelines. I think I recapped these after our meeting roughly right a month ago. So looking for any additions, deletions, changes. There are a couple things there. I think in general, we agreed to a lot of this as I just basically regurgitated it to you. One of the things that I think was left open is, do we establish a geographic boundary for consideration? Should they be town related only? Should it be, do we have any input on that?
Are we gonna get, is Link gonna say anything to us if we start selling our time to other people? If we start doing it all over the county?
We're not going to sell time. I've discussed that with them. What we're going to do is charge an administrative fee, and that'll be the extent of it. I mean, from my perspective, I think we should restrict what we're doing, but I look for your input. Anyone have a feeling on that? Yes.
How do we go about establishing this? I know we've talked about it for a couple meetings now. So how do we how do we implement our administrative fee, and if we're going to have a boundary, and who is going to be allowed? How do we go about, do we have to establish a procedure and an agreement, or?
Weren't you talking about doing something on the website, on our website?
Well,
Right,
being
but we need
applied
something
there?
on the books to say, this is
Right.
what we're going to do, this is what we're going to charge. I know normally when you do have a fee for something, it does, I believe, require some type of publication, like if an ordinance has a fee or a penalty, it's required to be published. I don't know if this would fall under that or not, but.
My first thought is we do it via resolution, but I'm gonna have to go and I've got to discuss this with Amy Sullivan. Anyhow, I got about 3 or 4 other things, but I want to run it by her. I don't think there's anybody else in the state that has their own billboard to advertise on, so it's going to need a little bit of legwork. But I'm guessing simplest, it'll be a resolution. Worst case, we'll do an ordinance with the rules and regulations stipulated in there. And what we have to work through, and I don't have the answer to this until we agree to whatever we want, we have to work through this so that we can put it up on the internet, work with Dustin Overbeck or whatever to try and integrate this into some source so that if the school, for example, says, hey, I want to run an ad for whatever, they'll come to Amy, she'll refer them to the internet, and from that point in time, everything will be done there until we get to the point where we have to give it to Link Media, and they'll have a single point of contact, and she'll work with it until they get approval, a couple iterations, and then they'll put it up. I mean, the day that I put welcome to the town of Sevastopol, I sent them our logo, I told them what I wanted to do, and a couple hours I got a proof back, and, you know, I said, okay, and within a couple hours it was on the board. So I envision that that would be, that we'll have it in either resolution form or an ordinance so that it carries forward.
With a reservation type form like we have for the town hall or whatever.
Right.
And again, those wishing to run a message, they would have to okay the proof and all that, so it doesn't all fall on our clerk.
Correct.
If there's an error.
I mean, ideally, you go to the web, you fill out the form, you tell us what you want to do, we give you give us the funds, we give you the contact person, and Amy gets a proof back of what they want to run, and she goes, yep, and if not, it comes to me or us, and it gets, you know, either yay or nay, and go from there.
Have we
So-
established how many, like, do you only get is that $50 to $100 minimum?
Well, that's why we're
Is that-
talking about this, is so that you tell them, we agree on what we want to do.
Right.
That's the purpose.
So that's for one message that
Correct.
runs one time?
Well,
Is
All right,
that's what I'm
let's
trying
go
to see
back,
that. Okay.
let's go back up to the top, and I'll just
Okay.
go right down it, and you either agree or disagree or expand it, and then, you know, we'll build off of it from there. So the focus was public service announcements or nonprofits, right? So I mean, if somebody's got an issue, whatever, just speak up. Community-wide events like the FFA breakfast, or perhaps the threshery or something like that, something that is involving our town residents or of interest to our town citizens, right? Anything the town wants to run always runs first, so I don't care if something comes up, if we've used our slot, the town still takes precedence over whatever, so we would define that. Personal messages, we would exclude those. There's plenty of reason for people to want us to run personal messages, but I don't think we want to get into that. We're not in the business of advertising for businesses. We're not trying to sell time. We're just trying to make good use of it and set some rules or guidelines on how to use it. Running a message once does not guarantee additional future placement. So if somebody said, we did the turkey trot this year, we want to do it next year, if it's convenient, if we choose, whatever, that's fine, but it doesn't necessarily imply that you will then get the same opportunity in the following year. Establish a geographic boundary. We could say the town could be, you know, whatever. I guess, obviously, town people would be first, or town events would be first. Do we want to go outside of that or not? I mean, do we want to be running the billboard for Fall Festival?
Well,
That's gonna be a gray area there, because that's also kind of advertising for the fall festival businesses, right?
Yeah, but it's not,
You know what I
No,
mean?
it doesn't
I look
have
at-
any
It's a
benefit
community event.
to the, doesn't have any benefit for the town. There's not, I mean,
Well, unless somebody's staying in a hotel in the town.
well, that's true.
Yeah.
You could go, you could
Or,
could
you know,
make-
shopping at some, or having food in an establishment in the town. So one, you know, I mean, what brings people to Door County brings people to Door County. No, I don't know, there's not room for everyone to stay in Northern Door. I mean, as far as if Fall Festival, say, you know, just staying in Sister Bay or whatever, they, you know, they end up staying through the
No, that's,
the county, but I mean, that's just a thought.
that's a good point. I mean, there's certainly some people that would stay in this community when they're going to pumpkin patch,
Yep,
so,
yep.
okay.
And I mean, if you're gonna, and then it's kind of like, if you allow pumpkin patch sometime, that's one festival. So obviously, you're gonna have the others wanting to go
Well,
on it
that's-
as well. So,
That's the,
Yeah.
that's the consideration that we have to, you know,
right.
this is not necessarily locked in concrete either. I mean, it could change. We could start out by saying we're gonna focus on our community first, or on these communities, or northern door versus southern door. I mean, do you want to advertise Belgian days? So we could restrict to some events to the north, I don't know, see what happens and then change our mind.
You could restrict to nonprofits, and that would encompass all municipalities and schools and the Lions Club and,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
if Pumpkin Patch wanted to advertise on a billboard, I think they'd probably buy time. I personally think we should concentrate on people who aren't likely to buy it, and of course, closer to home. What do you think? We're not blocking out Pumpkin Patch if we decide not to.
That's kind of what I was getting at, if Link's gonna start getting upset with us, because they charge umpteen dollars and we charge 50, you know what I mean, all of a sudden we're getting 50 calls a week asking if we can advertise for this and this and this. You know, I don't wanna get them mad,
well,
that's
But-
their business.
It's our billboard.
then maybe the first focus ought to be on town. A boundary ought to be something that happens within our town.
So
Are we
is-
gonna advertise, like, get this out, let people know that we have this time available?
Not necessarily. I'm not
Just kind of
trying
word
to
of
get us in the advertising.
mouth? Yeah,
Right.
that's what
No,
I'm
we're
worried
not, we're
about.
not trying to do that. I mean, we're just trying to make judicious use of what's available to us. And from my perspective, for the benefit of the town's people. So
Well-
Threshery or FFA or, you know,
Well-
scant candlelight ski at Whitefish Bay Dunes or
Right.
something of that nature. I think that's fine, or,
Mhm.
you know, or school events, but do you want to run a football game every Thursday night for the school? I don't know. I mean, that's not
Well,
in my mind.
well, then maybe we should think about it's just being a community type thing, just the Sevastopol, and just leave it at that, and
Right.
run with that, and, you know, there can be made adjustments, you know, a year from now if we feel so inclined.
Okay,
That's just a thought.
I'm fine with that. How about the rest of you?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay, so we're gonna make it a community, in other words, basically a town
Yeah.
activity. So we'll exclude out-of-towners, for lack of a better word. Okay,
The other thing is, someone mentioned to me in the on the communications committee about now that, you know, it's voting time, should there be something, you know, put on our billboard about, you know, voting and how to check your registration? There's a, you know, a site to go.
again, we would, I'm guessing here, but I'd say, you know, we could say Sevastopol Town poll hours are, so, you know, as a public service, just a very specific public service, Sevastopol Town polls are open from 7 to 7 or 7 to 8. You gotta be careful with the sign too. If it gets too busy, you can't read it.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, we can't put a whole lot into it, but yeah, we could do that. I mean, wanted to put that up, we can alternate, the way it's set up, we could alternate that on odd or even hours, or however, you know, we determine. So, okay. I don't think there's any disagreement. Town board would have final approval on the messaging. The clerk would be the initial checkpoint. And if need be, it would either come to the chair, vice chair. If need, it's contested, we could always bring it to the board. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Implement an administrative fee to cover the involvement of the town. Excuse me, we talked about a paid in advance fee of, and the question was, is $50 or $100? It would be for each time. So if we did the FFA breakfast once a year, it would be a $100 fee to run it again. If they don't want to run it, that's fine.
So this gets back to the question, how many times does it get run?
Oh, we'll run it for whatever time frame, but
Like every,
let's say the FFA, you run it for the month of June.
so every,
But if they run it again the following year, it's another $100.
I know, but how often? I mean, that, we
It
get
runs every 8 seconds.
every 8 seconds, so
I mean,
that.
excuse me, 8 seconds of
in a
every
minute.
minute.
Yes,
Right.
so
So
they
it
would
runs
have
basically
8
8.
seconds and 1 minute, or you're gonna, how many minutes are you giving them? How many seconds?
Within
Within
that
that.
1
Okay.
minute, you might have a, 4, 5, 6 second flash,
You have an 8-second flash
8-second flash?
each minute,
Each
Yes.
minute.
each
Yeah.
minute.
Right, so how many times are you going to allow them to flash? How's that? In an hour's time or
A
a,
lot.
yeah, are you gonna rotate it every, how's it
Yeah.
gonna work? I mean,
I think
if you're gonna charge them to do this, then,
we're not charging them,
if you're trying to charge an administrative fee,
correct. It would be dependent to me on how many messages we had to get in. So if you, let's take I've honed in on the FFA. So we take the FFA, which is the 4th of July. The next activity that I'm aware of in our town is typically the Threshery in August. So we wouldn't have, if those two events wanted to, we wouldn't have competing times. So we'd run the message for the FFA all of June up to the 4th of July when they have it or whatever. And after that, we'd run the Threshery from July till, or whatever, maybe a 30-day window ahead. And the stipulation would be, I don't know how we would deal with frequency in case we got a conflict, but their ad would run repetitively at least 7 to
Well,
10,
It would depend, so 60 seconds in a minute, so, and they each getting 8 seconds comes to 7.5.
right?
Now, if Link has 5 advertisers on there already within that minute,
Well,
that only leaves us with 2, or you're gonna start rotating, okay, your ad necessarily won't run every minute, it'll run every 1.5 minutes or every 2
we
minutes.
get 8 seconds every minute,
Automatically.
automatically, if
okay.
we have a time. If they don't have 7 or 8 advertisers, it will run more frequent.
Okay.
But they'll find something to space it with. So we get 8 seconds out of every minute, so at 68, we get 48 times an hour, right?
Amy, do you recall, I know it depends on the speed limit going past, what is the
45.
best rate? Like, if you're going 45 miles an hour or 55 miles an hour, like, what is the speed limit out there?
45 on that stretch.
They say that, okay, you only have 4 seconds, and then
Oh,
you're
you
I
past.
mean, that you
Time.
see it?
That you-
Right, so,
I don't recall that number, but it's good to know.
yeah.
I think that number is already set by the DOT though.
Or somebody, yeah, if you want to really read something and you're
Yeah.
driving 40 miles an hour, you have 3 seconds or 4
What
seconds
a wonderful
to see
distraction.
it. So
Well,
that's not our problem.
yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll have to touch base with the Link on that and see. I mean, let's put it this way, I think it'll get more than enough exposure, because even if we agreed to run it every other hour, you'd still get, 48 insertions an hour.
We get 8 seconds and a
8
minute?
seconds out of every minute.
Okay, and if we have
So you have
2 or 3
60,
people that want to run something, that's,
yeah, and they can alternate.
sure.
Somebody's buzzing.
Do we need to ask Link if do they want us to have 3 or 4 or 5, or are they gonna get to the point where they don't want us to do they care if they said anything like that, or, yeah, I don't,
No, the guidelines, I mean, I've asked the questions, and the basic answer I get is, no problem. Just give us, what you want. I mean, I don't think, realistically, I can't envision that we're gonna have a whole heck of a lot.
Well, not if you're
I don't
gonna,
think so
you know,
either.
If you stay
narrow it
within
down
our-
to our town.
Stay within our community
Yeah.
and public service announcements. I mean, the school might have 2 or 3 a year that they want to promote. We have the obvious events, maybe like the bicycle, the Door 100, that goes through our community, or maybe the fire department is doing baby, what do you call it?
Car seats?
Car seats or something, and you could put it up there. So, I mean, I think we'll give everybody more than enough exposure, and in worst-case scenario, if we have competing ones, then we would just alternate every other hour. And you'd still get plenty of coverage, I think. But I'll try and see if there's, I don't know what that verbiage would be, but airtime, that's what it is. Okay. So we need to agree on what the administrative fee is. We had just discussed anywhere from $50 to $100. So I need your feedback.
either one is very reasonable in my opinion. Where can you advertise? I mean, that's $100 for that big of a sign, and to me, that's quite reasonable. I mean, we're not advertising for business
I was
again.
gonna say, we're not supposed to be advertising.
We're not advertising.
Not advertising.
Well, I would suggest $100. We could always change it if you think not, but I think in the end, it's going to be the same story, even though we want it to be painless. I'm guessing that it won't be totally painless for Amy. So, and if we have it too inexpensive, then it becomes, so, anyway, that would be my guess.
And then do we have to earmark that money for something, or just, what is that?
Chairman's raises.
There you go.
I don't know, we'll just put it in the general fund, I mean, if we want to, we could keep track of what it is, just from an informational perspective, and use it for, if we want to designate it for something, I have no issue with that, if you have some suggestion. I mean, we could put it towards the park, but you know how spendthrift we are.
Or you can put it toward the communications and technology
We could-
committee.
Communications are, we could give it to the planning department, the fire
We
committee.
could buy some.
Let's get $100 first, and once we get the first 100, we can designate where to go. Okay, so the 100 is good.
Somewhere.
Payment, you gotta have the money paid before, so I'm gonna guess a couple weeks before. Seem good?
In that
Well-
time frame, are you doing the creative thing? I mean,
Yeah, I
does it
think,
happen that quickly?
well, depending on how busy they are. Let's just say the creative is 30 days. Because we don't wanna make promises for somebody and create headaches. So if you're gonna run the FFA breakfast starting June 1st, you need to have whatever in,
2 weeks before that date?
I'd say a month in theory, and you better be paid to do that. So that would be my guess. And give them plenty of time so that we don't wear out our welcome and it still benefits them. Each new or returning message at a future time results in another admin fee. All right. Need to establish a contact person and guidelines. That's something we'll have to put into the form, whatever we use, that says, here are the guidelines and rules, so that you're only working with one person, not multiple people. Number 4, a question was asked, do we need an ordinance to govern the guidelines? I don't know that or a resolution, but I will find out before we we go on with this. And I'll have the town attorney work through whatever we need to deal with the end user. Town website ideally will be the place where everyone will go to do all of their stuff, other than send the check in. And I did have a conversation, just as an FYI, with the county, use of the billboard, because they wanted to use our billboard for 6 months to a year. And they changed their tune when I requested a donation to the infamous and fun-loving Muscat renovation. And they are ceasing the mask up signage, which they are paying for, on October 1st. They're paying Link Media now for that sign that says mask up Door County. And they're gonna cease
So
that.
they weren't willing to send some money to the town of Sevastopol,
No.
whom they forced to have this sign,
Right.
but they will give it to Link Media.
Right, and they've
Okay.
decided that after October 1st, you don't need to mask up anyhow, so have at it. I know, it was, I gave them 2 opportunities, and they gracefully declined, so. Okay, I'll try and get some answers to this and maybe take it to the next step in the coming month or so, and we'll bring it back when it's appropriate. And Amy, if you decide you want to do something on voting, you and I will just work that out.
Okay.
All right, or if there's some other, is there anything else pending that anybody, if somebody thinks of something that we really need to do, like other than gun deer season, we are not going to put that up, though I know you'd like that, Mark. Okay. All right. Good enough. We'll move on. So under new business, communication and technology, Door County zoning, chapter 14 recommendation. I'm going to give this over to Jeannie here in a minute, but I guess I'll just kind of start the conversation out that we have talked on and off as a board to try and address broadband expansion in our community, which would enable, for example, today with COVID, would benefit the students in our town that are in the school district through virtual learning. It would benefit our residents, not only the residents that live here year-round, but the seasonal residents who want to work out of their homes or may decide to move here, but are hampered by the lack of high-speed internet. And as a side benefit, as we expand the broadband out to the community, we expand our outreach as a town by enabling such things as communication through YouTube, in addition to our TV station. So Jeannie's been focused on trying to work through that, and I guess I will let her tell you a little bit more about why we're thinking of doing this, and et cetera, et cetera. So Jeannie?
So the committee met, the Communications and Technology Committee met August 25th, and at that time, Door County Broadband did a presentation. Prior to that, as the board knows, the Bug Tussle did a presentation. The unanimous decision of the Communications and Technology Committee was that we go forward in a partnership with Door County Broadband in also securing a grant from the PSC, Public Service Commission. In addition to that, in order for that to happen, the committee also recommended unanimously to the town board that we opt out of Chapter 14 of the Door County Ordinance, which is in regard to communication support structures and related facilities. Those that were either were at the committee meeting or viewed it on YouTube, the presentation by Door County Broadband, you would have seen or heard the words of Kevin Boss, which indicated that in order for us to work toward that goal of providing internet capacity to people in our community that are not served or underserved, there's so many restrictions within this ordinance that makes it extremely difficult and also extremely expensive to put up broadband towers. The northern, Dave Studebaker and his wife Karen also came and did a presentation of, they're both involved with the Technology Committee at the town of Liberty Grove. And they both talked to, Dave did most of the speaking in regard to what they did, why they opted out. And they are not the only ones that have opted out. All the northern Durham municipalities, with us being the exception, north of Sturgeon Bay, have opted out of this ordinance in order to move forward for their community to bring broadband to their communities. So they've all created their own ordinances, their own tower ordinances. You saw Liberty Groves, that was sent to you. I don't know if you have a copy in your packet. I'm looking at a copy now. I also looked at the town of Jacksonport, who also did their own ordinance. I believe the one in the town of Liberty Grove, I believe we share the same law firm. And they would have created this ordinance. I believe the town of Jacksonport uses a different law firm, but also, it's very simple. If you look at the ordinance, it's very simple, I think, to replace the ordinance, and it's straightforward. So I don't think it's problematic for us to do so. Bringing broadband to the community is going to serve the kids and the teachers. Bring more economic opportunity to our community. Bring, the people that choose to move here and want to settle in Sevastopol. Obviously, broadband, internet is no longer, it's a necessity. It's like a utility. It's like electricity. It's a requirement. It's a need, not a want anymore. So that's what we're proposing. I have, notes on where to start with grants, and I've spent many hours and educating myself, and also learning more about what it would involve to go forward with in a partnership agreement and in a to go forward with a grant as well. So I have steps for doing that, and the very first thing that has to happen, though, is we do need to opt out of Chapter 14. Then you enter into agreement with Door County Broadband. You also register as Broadband Forward Community. Someone's designated to help fill in that form. Attorney reviews that. We also review the PSC agreement, and it'll, it's apparent what the town person needs to do and what Door County Broadband needs to do in regard to the form. And then I can tell you about there's a webinar actually that's going to happen on Thursday from 9 to 10 in the morning about broadband. And then the Door County Economic Development Corporation there's going to be a Zoom meeting for broadband, about broadband at 6 p.m., on September 30th. And I intend to be on both calls. And I think that it would be great if someone else from the town board would also be on that call. In particular, maybe somebody from the planning committee would be great to be on this September 30th. More ears are better than 2 ears. And they'll be talking about strategies for obtaining a grant. So
So this
Discussion?
chapter 14 ordinance, is this gonna go away if, I mean, who's left?
Well, that's
If
some,
if we opt out, Sturgeon Bay, well, they don't need the towers, because they have Spectrum Charter. So
Oh.
who's left, you know what I mean, like what?
The southern municipalities would fall under, some of the southern municipalities are under county zonings. City does not fall under county zoning, they have their own, I believe. But
I think the number that they brought to the meeting was about 80% of the geography and the citizens impacted would be outside county zoning.
If we-
If we opt out, yeah, so I mean, if we
Right.
go out, then
yep,
Which you would,
Yeah.
which you would
Not much.
I think
think.
they'd start to rethink it, hopefully.
Yeah, that's what the hope would be, is that they decide to rethink
Yep.
why do we need to do this if everybody's opted out?
Yeah,
I did have some I have some concerns of my own on dropping out of that, although it's tough to foresee somebody coming along to build another cell tower in our community, because we already have a number of cell towers throughout the town. But it is possible that we could hire, if need be, if we got a request and the Plan Commission needed it, we could hire an outside consultant just to make sure all the I's, the T's and I's are all crossed and dotted if need be.
well,
So
there's also Wisconsin state statute that
Right.
it
There's-
covers the, cell towers.
Right. And to the comment that Jeannie made about Door County Broadband, and you did get a chance to hear from Hilbert or Bug Tussle. I think the thing that stood out with Door County Broadband is that they've made a fairly large investment in the town already, or in the surrounding communities that we benefit from by building off of what they're doing. And I think even if we agreed to do all of this and jumped on board, we'd be lucky if they could put it, and everything went our way, we'd be lucky if they could put a tower or two up in 2021 in the back half of the year. They have enough other demands or work in progress. So regardless of what we do, I don't think it's going to impact things in the next 90 days, but it'll set the stage for something to happen in 2021. And it may or may not require some investment on our part once we get to that point. We don't know unless Jeannie has any input on that tonight, but we don't know at this juncture what that might be.
Well, the typical partnership has been, and this is what they've done with other communities that they've worked with, is 75,000 put in by the municipality, 75,000 put in by Door County Broadband, and then you go for a PSC grant of 150,000. The determinations, the PSC grants are very competitive. So you have to put your best foot forward. And so one of the suggestions that was made is that we offer town property to place the towers on. That's one of the very ways that the PSC looks very favorably on that public, they call it a private-public partnership. Also, if the town offers property that they could place a tower on, there's typically a municipality has leased the property to the broadband company, but they waive, let's say, 3 to 5 years of lease payment. And then, of course, again, you'd have to have the broadband forward letter, and then you'd need letters of support from the community, the school, people in general, probably go ask the Door County Economic Development Corporation for a letter, those kinds of things. And then, the two places in particular that they were pointing out would be Clark Lake, there's what they're calling there's a private property owner that's putting up what they call a micro pop tower on the north side. It is small, so it can only hold a certain amount of equipment, a limited amount of equipment. And thus, and also there's an old tower on the Orthober property. That's pretty much phasing down. So they would really, the benefit to all the surrounding Clark Lake area would be putting a 120-foot self-supporting tower on the south side of Clark Lake on the property. It's about 0.60 acres, which is where the beach is located in our town. There's enough area there to put up a tower, and that would serve that entire area. And then in addition to that, there's an area that the town owns where Highway 57, Whitefish Bay Road, and Brower Road come together, area of St. John's Church, which is 0.68 acres, which they also would propose a 120-foot self-supporting tower on that property. I have some general information on cost of towers. If you want that information, be happy to provide that. I also have information on what the footprint would be for a certain size tower. If you would like to know that, I'd be happy to share that with you as well.
I think maybe that information you could summarize and send out,
Okay,
which would be the easiest way, so everybody's kind of on the same page, and then we can focus on the Chapter 14 component as to whether or not the rest of the board thinks it has merit to move on with this or not, because that's really the first step in making any of this happen before anything else that Jeannie is working on can proceed. So hear from the rest of you, I guess, on your thoughts. Linda, I'm sure you have a thought.
Oh, I do.
You do?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good.
So I'm glad that Jeannie reminded me to listen to the August 25th presentation. Nowhere in that presentation, though, did I hear the height of their proposed towers. They're all going to be 14 inches wide, triangular. They talked about and then the pictures are 70-footers and 120-footers. What was the height on these proposed towers?
on the two that, 120 feet, self-supporting.
so-
The guide, they don't go, if they do a guide tower, that takes up more space. It doesn't fit on these two particular parcels. But a guide tower, they don't go beyond 190 feet because they don't want to get into the FAA, yeah.
Right, but if they're only going to 120 feet, and Chapter 14 exempts towers that are 120 feet or less.
Well, there's other stipulations.
That they don't care.
Right, because
Okay.
there's
right.
a fall, there's a number of other things involved, which is why Kevin made the comment, you can be here on this pile of, people, the municipalities that have opted out, or you can be over here, where the ones that didn't opt out.
He said
And the
that,
cost gets to be a lot more.
yeah,
also.
he had said that 67% of Door County's population had opted out of Chapter 14,
All right.
so.
That sounds right.
And then you talked just about PSC grants. What about other agencies that are offering grants? I know Wisconsin Coastal Management Program was offering a grant.
I need to check
Bay
into
Lakes
those.
Regional Planning Commission will
Yep.
help us with grants.
We had
So
discussed using.
you're not limited to just PSC,
Oh, no.
are you?
Oh, no.
Okay, because I was wondering why their public-private strategic alliance agreement just mentions PSC.
Because they're the ones with the cash right now
Okay.
that are promoting this, and they threw out I forget how much, 26 million or something in the fourth quarter
Yeah, there's.
that they refunded.
But in these, the PSC grants closed December 1st.
Okay.
So that's
Isn't there
the,
like- okay.
they opened like September 1st or 2nd, and they closed December 1st. So that's a sense of urgency, because if we don't get in on this, we wait another year for a PSC grant. And there's no guarantee that we would even be, we would get that, because as I've been told, I've been communicating a lot with Jess at Door County Broadband, and she said, it's very competitive, there's no guarantee. These other, like Nassau-Waupee, I think, have been working in a partnership with Door County Broadband for about 6 years. So they've kind of been ahead of the curve, and they've really, now that with this year, will have done everything they can outside of somebody that would be putting up a private tower. They've done everything they can there. Liberty Grove, they've been working with them for years. So, and Jacksonport, I think, started last year, the year before, trying to get these grants. So, yeah, so we have it's
How many
a,
towers are in
He
town
also-
right now?
oh.
Sorry.
He also said that the number of potential subscribers or customers would be a driver for the PSC as well. So have they done studies to come up with a potential number of customers in Sevastopol?
I can't answer that.
Okay. And then these ordinances from Liberty Grove and Jacksonport, I thought they were extremely vague, especially Liberty Grove. But anyway, in Jacksonport, it talks about towers that provide Wi-Fi service. And then down in definitions, it talks about radio signals. Is that the same thing? Is it?
Yes.
I think so.
And then also, if you opt out of county, this chapter, now Jacksonport says the construction of a new tower will require a zoning permit issued by Jacksonport and a building permit issued by Jacksonport. So we have no problem issuing the building permit because that's Brett Timmy
Right.
and his outfit, but does that mean we need to develop our own zoning permit process as well?
I don't know who, I haven't gotten that far. I don't know who created these two ordinances. There's actually 4 of them.
Well-
Steve Sullivan, Nassau-Waupee has one, Jacksonport, Bailey's Harbor, and Liberty Grove. We only have 2 here, but I don't know who, I don't know who's responsible for the creation of these. Do you have any idea, Jeannie?
Yeah, I believe it's that town's attorney.
Right. I mean, we would want ours to be very
Right, we would.
comprehensive and cover everything. Like Jacksonport's can be on parcels as long as they're a ½ acre in size. Is that big enough for us? Are we going to have complaints from the neighbors or whatever? Setbacks, same as the zoning district. I assume that's going to include shoreline as well.
Yeah, I think
I just-
envision that we would try and take the multiple ordinances and get them consolidated into one that makes some sense. And I don't know if Randy did any of these, if Amy Sullivan has, or if it's Van Castle? I think he's,
That's Egg Harbor, yeah.
so I don't know who's done these, but hopefully there's some connection between them where we could pull together and get one that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I figured we would
Yeah.
do, is you'd kind of look at all of them and then take
Right.
what you like out of each one, and with the attorney's help.
And then one more question. On page 2 of this alliance agreement or whatever, I assume this is a pro forma that they enter into with all the municipalities. There are responsibilities of the municipality, pursuing the grant application, designating someone on our end, to kind of orchestrate all this and work with Door County Broadband and all that, and maintain records, so, I don't know. I just want to make sure we cover all of our bases when we come down to an ordinance. If we opt out of Chapter 14, that we have something that our
Yeah.
residents will be happy with, and Door County Broadband as well, so.
I think if we, not knowing all of the ins and outs of every one of those ordinances, I think if we, how do I want to say this? To some degree, if we mirror the county's ordinance on these towers, so we're not
Reinventing the wheel.
reinventing
Yeah.
the wheel or moving outside of what's already there as an existing guidance, we should be all right, other than taking out the restrictions that are hampering us. And in doing so, I mean, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot except for footprint, a little bit about obviously height, and the other one is, what I want to call it, the fallback structure, the
The fall zone,
fall zone,
yeah, which is
So-
a big detriment, that's a big detriment.
big
yeah.
issue.
Big issue.
But, you know, obviously, we got all kinds of things here going. We got the cart before the horse before the cart, we got anything and everything in between. We need to just decide if we want to continue to pursue this. The recommendation is that we remove ourselves from Chapter 14, and once we do that, then the requirement becomes that we have to come up with an ordinance that fulfills the requirements for what we're trying to achieve and at the same time protects us and the community so we don't have other issues. So,
Would we have to do that simultaneously?
That's
I
what I
mean, we
was
wouldn't want to be sitting without any ordinance at all.
Yeah, did the other towns do that?
I
Did
don't
they have the
know.
ordinance in place and then opt
So
out
that
of
it's-
Chapter 14,
right.
or we have 90 days to get something set
Because
up?
if it's, again, if it's an ordinance, it has to be noticed and published
Yep.
and
Right.
and all that, so.
do we have an answer, do we have any idea on that one? Because I
I
do
don't.
not know. Well, it's certainly one item that we will have to find out. It's a good thought, though.
Are we talking all about we're only doing the Chapter 14 ordinance right now, correct?
Pardon me?
We're only talking about the Chapter 14 ordinance, we're not talking about the
Nothing else?
broadband stuff right now?
No.
Okay.
You know, again, there is a Wisconsin state statute that covers cell towers. And it's my understanding that when a cell tower company wants to do a cell tower, that's where they start their application process.
If we opt out of Chapter 14 and we have our own ordinance, are we precluding any other company from coming in? That's not, okay, they're not dependent on us, and they're not dependent on any contribution from the town.
No.
They could just come in.
Anybody that would want to, all we're doing is making it easier to function. We're not defining in our ordinance that it's with anybody. As far as the grant goes, then you would be in partnership with Door County Broadband for that grant cycle, but that's only from now until the determination is made.
I have one more question.
You said you had one earlier
I'm
and you
sorry.
answered that.
Okay, on page 3 of, again, I'll refer to this alliance agreement. Number 10, the term. So the term shall end if we get rejected for a grant, or the project completed, or we decide to breach the agreement. Do we have an amount of our investment to proceed with this grant or whatever? Do we need any funds up front that we may not recoup?
No,
Okay,
And we don't need any funds up front to actually apply
okay.
either.
No.
So when we figure out how much this will amount to, and my understanding, and you can correct me here, Jeannie, but my understanding is if the town contributes land or the footprint for a tower, that's considered part of our contribution.
well, it's considered more favorably to get the grant by the
Okay.
PSC. It has nothing to do with the partnership between Door County Broadband and the
Right,
the
I meant for-
municipality.
with the PSC, okay.
Yeah,
And the one piece of land we can't use, the one by St. John's Church,
Yeah,
that's one across from Bob Tice's house, that little triangle.
Yeah.
I mean, that's right on the highway.
Why
I could
can't
put a
we use
tower
it?
right there.
well, it would be no different, Mark, than a tree that's already there.
120-foot tree.
Yeah, but I mean,
But then we're liable if that fall, I mean, don't you have a fall instead of fall zone?
Yeah.
I mean, that's right on the highway. I don't wanna come around the corner and look at that, I'd rather look at the billboard.
well, the billboard will do
I'd
is
rather put a billboard there than a cell tower, be truthfully honest.
well,
put a,
the point of it, it's not, we're not talking about a cell tower, we're talking about a broadband tower.
Well, 120
And-
foot.
and
see,
it would-
yeah.
You know, it would benefit the community. The, a sign does not benefit the community.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying they would, I'm just saying the look of it and having it right. I think it's kind of a scary spot to have it right on that highway.
Well, you have to, I'm sure there's setback guidelines that they'd have to look at. And
Oh, I thought they'd already taken care of that when they suggested that piece. That's why,
I think
that's why
they
I was under the
looked, no, I think they looked at it as it's a piece that the town owns.
possible. Okay,
And a possibility, again, the other thing is that you are not, you can put these two properties forward, you know, within the grant, my understanding is, but that, the finalizing part is, maybe that's not, that particular one is not going to work, so then they just find an alternate plan, and it doesn't affect the grant.
Derek Demise seemed to feel that he had enough neighbors in the neighborhood over there that they'd be signing up left and right to have a tower on their property. So God knows, but you know, who knows? And I think we're off on a side conversation, but I think there's a lot more work to be done on where those towers need to be, how big, and, you know,
well, that's kind of,
there's just too many unanswered questions, I think, unless Jeannie has them all, but I think we, you know, take one step at a time.
As I think I just said, that what they do is that you put that in the proposal.
Right.
It doesn't, and then you make that determination if that's actually going to work, or if there's a site that's a better site, you know.
That you proceed with.
Yes, then you proceed
Okay.
with that.
Amy, would you contact the town clerks in those communities and find out what their process was on the sequence?
Sure.
Did they opt out, or did they have it simultaneously ready to go with another ordinance or whatever? And I think, I'm sure there's a time gap in there. I mean, it's tough to believe that if we opted out of this today, that tomorrow morning, Verizon would come in and ask to put up a cell tower, and by the time Linda has the planning meeting, knowing that we don't have an ordinance, the planning meeting would thereby delay until we have an ordinance, right? I don't know. It's all guesswork. But at any rate, would you find out for us, and we'll go from there.
Dare I ask one more question? Well, Jeannie, you said you were a very satisfied customer of Door County Broadband.
I
So
am.
that's fantastic. When we had the Bug Tussle people here, they did give us a little handout on estimated monthly costs.
Right.
I did not see any, I know that
We have that.
Mrs. Voss, I can't think of her name right now, said that she mentioned $55 a month.
That's
So
okay.
can I ask what you pay, and then I will compare that to what I pay?
Yeah, actually, I thought everyone received these in a, there is
Oh, I
information.
didn't see that.
no.
No, I think that was
No.
just in the committee.
Within the
Jean.
committee? Okay. So the silver package is 4 down and 1 up, and it's $54.95 a month. That's the package I have now.
Okay.
It's
That's
four-
the least expensive. It's $54.95 a month. 4 down, 1 up.
I don't know what that means.
It's the
Speeds.
speed. We have a desktop, an iPad, 2 iPhones, the town computer, and the county computer. And we stream Netflix.
For a
And-
non-techie person, she certainly has a lot of equipment, huh?
Yes, she does.
Yeah. So it takes to live life, huh?
that's-
And then there's a Silver Plus, 6 down and 2 up for $64.95. And then there's a Gold, 8 down and 2.5 up for $74.95 a month. And there's the Gold Plus, there's a Platinum, there's a Platinum Plus, there's a Diamond, and there's a Diamond Plus.
This is not a solution that's going to take somebody off of charter internet
No.
to
Right.
go to, I mean, this is,
They're
Yeah,
not
I
competing.
understood that
Yeah, they're
from
not
the-
competing
from the
with
meeting.
charter.
so
Right.
you won't find, it's not a solution. We're not trying to create a competitive environment. We're
Right.
trying to create an environment where someone can get access.
Right.
so.
I mean,
Thank
there's
you.
some people that, want to stream all kinds of different media and, I've been doing Zoom meetings from home and it's worked out fine. But,
Do you know where the closest tower is to you guys?
no, I don't know, no.
Well, he said they don't use the tower at HH, right?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah. Broadband doesn't use the towers at HH. They used to, but they don't anymore.
No, I don't think they're on there anymore.
Any more questions on this? Derek, you got any?
No.
Actually, were you looking at the Public-Private Strategic Alliance Agreement, right?
Yes.
It had, a part of that whole thing was in the PSC, the Broadband Forward was attached to that as well?
Didn't see that.
Okay, well, maybe that came with the committee too, because there was a cost sheet on the front of that as well.
Given Linda's question about the sequence and covering ourselves with a secondary ordinance, I would like to postpone removing ourselves or voting on removing ourselves from Chapter 14. But I say that because I'd like to have the answer first before we completely remove ourselves from it. But on the same side of the coin, I know that we need to move ahead with the grant process. So what I'd like to do is get your commitment, perhaps, or sense of commitment that if I bring this back next month and I give you the answer that you need, that we'll just move ahead with this. But I don't want to be surprised in a month that you've all come back and said, oh, by the way, I've changed my mind, I don't want to do this. So does that make sense?
Yes.
So, so that way you can still communicate to Door County Broadband. Our intention is to take action and, here's the sense that we have. So let me just poll everybody. How would that be? Derek, are you for removing ourselves from
Yes.
Chapter 14? Yes? Linda?
Based on the information presented and, yep, yes.
Okay, I am.
Of course.
Jeannie and Mark?
Yes.
Okay, so what I will do is we will get the answers to this question about coverage ordinances before next month. And I will put it on for a vote then to remove ourselves from Chapter 14. And at the same time, Jeannie can move ahead with Door County Broadband and get this thing rolling. So, okay? Good enough.
Also, if I could add, if
Sure.
there's questions, if there's other questions,
Yeah?
would anyone on the board have any more questions they want answers for? Would you just email them to me? Okay.
Okay. Next item, compensation for clerk. I put this on, I've talked to each of you a little bit individually, I've raised it at a town board meeting. Basically, my position is that since COVID has come about, our town clerk, Amy, has done an outstanding job for us in difficult circumstances. And she has gone above and beyond, from my perspective, in all areas. She has especially supported the elections under some very difficult circumstances. She has had day-to-day contact with townspeople. She has put herself at risk, and she is in a vulnerable position. And in her absence, if there was a case where she were to fall sick, quite frankly, our town would grind to a halt until she was able to step back in and pick up the pieces that she does so well for us. And we thought that under all of the extra effort and time that she has put in, that we might be able to go back under the federal government's CARES Act and perhaps recover some compensation for her, but we were unable to do that. We did, in case you haven't noticed, get a new window in her office area to help her interact with people bringing ballots back in. But she is certainly deserving of our recognition, and I think of some financial reimbursement for the time and effort that she's put forward. So I have talked to her about this, have told her that these were my feelings, that she was certainly deserving of this. I need your support and your recommendations. And I think the easiest one would be to give her a one-time cash award to compensate for this and for what she's putting herself through for the next few months for us as well. So
Maybe that's the first $100 from the link thing goes.
the first 100, so is that a motion then, Mark?
Not yet, I want to hear more.
Okay, so that's my background on why,
Thanks.
and so I give it back to you as the board and ask you to tell me what we think we would like to do for her. So you can all chime in as you like.
Does Amy have to cover her ears for this?
No, but she does, and I think she just wrote down the thing about the $100 though, Mark. So, feel free.
I'll go first, if
Hey, go
nobody
ahead.
else wants to go first. Just looking back at past experience and whatever, I kind of, with absentee ballots, which are have been very popular this year, it is a process for the clerk. You have to make sure the absentee request is correct. You have to make sure they have their proof of ID, that they're registered, and that, you know, the address is correct and all that. And then you get the outside envelope and the inside envelope, and make sure you have the right ballot style with the right ward and the right district, and send that out in the mail, and then it comes back. Every single step you have to document daily, and you have to send that log to the county clerk's office for every single day. Correct, Amy?
That's correct.
Yep. So just roughly, I came up with 15 minutes per absentee ballot. You know, by the time you get it over, which is probably on the way conservative side. So, and Amy has done anything from maybe 300 absentee ballots with the February primary to, I'm sure she's pushing 800, almost 1,000 for this November election. So times 15 minutes for each one of those ballots, times 4 elections we had this year, that's a lot of time. Her current salary, and I kind of calc this out to see what an hourly rate would be, and that's around $28 an hour, plus, of course, the Wisconsin retirement benefit. My suggestion was $5,000. So if you took $25,000 at $25 an hour, it comes out roughly to 4 extra hours a week. Now, maybe 5,000 sounds like a lot, and that's 5,000 gross, not 5,000 net, so out of that 5,000 would come FICA withholding and all that. But to sort of compensate for those deductions, it would be subject to the retirement fund. So we would be kicking in our 6 or 7%, right? I don't know what the percent is right now.
6.5.
So it probably would average out to close to $5,000. And that's my thought.
Okay, thank you. Derek, Mark, Jeannie, feel free. Anyone, I'd like all your input.
I would agree with Linda on that dollar amount as well. Amy does a great job for our town, but you also have to look at the other opportunities that she is qualified for. And a lot of positions out there are giving sign-on bonuses in that amount. So
Okay.
I would agree with that 5,000.
Well, Linda did her homework, if you will, and presents a good, I think, point and argument of why Amy should have $5,000, so I'm in agreement.
Mark, you're the,
Besides what Linda said is, as you said, Dan, with this, the being here for people to come in through all this, she's putting herself and her family through this, you know, the possibility of getting the COVID. So no matter what we give her, we're gonna have flack from somebody. If we give her $5, someone's gonna complain about it, right? So I think she's well worth it. She does a great job, we all know that.
Could I just ask one?
you have one
she's
more
a-
question?
Of course. She's also voluntarily, she's taken minutes for our plan commission at night. She's taken minutes for your communications.
She has.
Committee. And I do have a question, though, because for elections, per your contract, Amy, any additional time for elections, you can take time off, right? Paid time off.
Correct.
So maybe that's something we need to think about, too. Like if she's put in an extra 500 hours this year, do you get a bonus and 500 hours off? I mean, we'd have to find a balance there. So, and this would be a one-time thing. It's not going to happen every year. This is a one-time thing for now. So,
Plus with the elections, she's kind of getting all the people here to work. Half of her family's here now. It's not, they weren't gonna be here if it wasn't for Amy. You know what I mean? She's finding the help that we need. You know, she's not sitting on her hands. She's going out and recruiting and getting the help that we need to run these elections.
finding the people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this her estimated time, that's as the clerk, plus the time of our poll workers to process all these absentees on top of that, so.
Is there any way we can pay out some of that time as well
I'm
that
sorry.
she has accumulated from elections? If she
Well-
were to take off all the hours that she's accumulated, would she even,
Well, she could take the time off, and we actually, a while back, Amy and I talked a little bit about that, wondering whether or not she'd want to take that, or if maybe adding to her vacation or whatever. I'm sure we could work something out with respect to that. I personally, although she has put a huge amount of time into the election process, and, there's been times where her walked in here and her kids are helping her stamp envelopes to keep up with the demand. But my focus is perhaps a little bit different. I appreciate all of that stuff that she's done for the elections, but I appreciate even more so what she's done for us as a town and as a town board in the amount of time that she's spent here, the risk that she's put herself at. I know my wife used to come and work for the elections and doesn't anymore, simply because she's an at-risk individual. And a lot of us that have done those things have backed away, and yet we've depended upon her to run our town and, continue to be the face of the town, as well as do all of the things that I need and some of you need to have done. So I am personally saying, irrespective of all of that, I think she's deserving of it just based on those facets alone. And I am confident that she understands why we would do this on an exception basis, and leave it at that, and let her balance her time as she sees fit, I guess.
And I hope that you do find time to take some time off. Money is great, but it's not everything. And, you know, you sacrificed your health and everything to be here. Taking time away is important, so please make time to take time off.
Well, as someone who was the clerk for a very long time, you know how when you leave something there, it's going to be there when you come
Right.
back to it. So I understand that, and I will do my best to do that, but you know how difficult it is.
You could take Wednesday night from 8 o'clock to Thursday morning off.
Deal.
Next year should be,
Next year,
I keep telling Amy she's gonna have this downtime, and it's never happened in the past 4 or 5 years. Next year should be just one election, hopefully, where you can take some time off, and, you know, maybe take every Friday afternoon I'm gonna take off or something, or every Friday. It's just, like I said, money's nice, but time off is for your own personal well-being.
well, I'll tell you what, I started this process, so I will take the motion, I will make the motion that we give her a one-time bonus of $5,000 gross, subject to FICA and all the other good things, as extraordinary compensation for an extraordinary effort. So,
I will second that motion.
we have a motion by Dan, second by Linda, to compensate our clerk for her extraordinary efforts for this year for us and the town. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one. Okay. Amy, I'll be happy to sign that check. Okay,
Thank you very much.
You're
It's very
welcome.
appreciated.
thank you. Okay, last item here under new business, and I think by the lack of an audience tonight, I think this will be a quick piece. I gave you a lot more detail than perhaps you might need, but this all started with a question about who owned a lane, because some people wanted to access that lane down to the water to install riprap. And from that, I started going through records. Some were provided by Laddie years ago. I talked to Chris Moe at the county, and she helped me go through some different records. I think I engaged Amy a little bit, and finally, our Amy, and also finally Amy Sullivan, to try and determine, who owns this kind of no man's land, and do we or don't we want to try and regulate it, or can we regulate it? And I gave you Amy Sullivan's recap, which basically says, we don't seem to have a right to stop any vehicle from accessing the water or shoreline, and that the best guess from her would be that if we thought that we needed it to regulate access to the water through those access points, we would try to have to attempt to do so through weight limitations. I personally can't envision that we would want to do this or get into the role of policeman for beach access. My recommendation is we do nothing with it and just let it continue as is. There are regulations, and I did copy you in on, I think, a memo from Sarah Zabel with the DNR, just explaining that anybody that goes across somebody else's property has to have permission, and if they're in the water, they have to contact the DNR. So if somebody is going to go down there, they'd have to get permission from someone, and if there's someone that's concerned about equipment crossing their property, for example, like Mr. Schuster or someone else, he could deny access, and that would stop the progression of equipment. So I don't think we want to take any action on it, but if you feel that we should, if not, I've been in communication with the president of the Glidden Drive Association, Jean Elstey, having talked with her about this. They really want to try and avoid getting involved to any degree as well. So, but I just want to give you an option so you know what's up if you get anything from anyone, because I know some of the people there have communicated with me numerous times. They've also communicated the biz about their feelings on access, and you see some of those thoughts expressed in Mr. Schuster's note. But my take on it is I think we should stay away from it, but let me know your thoughts. Linda, you want to go first, did you say?
Was this passed, was the DN from Sarah at the, was that passed along to Glidden Drive and everybody so that they know permission is needed from the landowners if they're crossing on the land, and from the DNR if they're crossing in the water?
No, I did not send that to, I can send that out to Glidden, that's not a
Or
problem.
Mr. Schuster?
Yep.
So I'm okay with just leaving it up to the DNR and the landowners.
Okay. That's fine with me. Anyone else? Okay.
I think you and Linda covered my feelings on it.
Yeah, I think if you send these letters forward to the Glidden Drive Association, that should,
Yeah, okay, we will cover the grounds on that. All right, financial reports. I gotta dig down to those things. All right, so you have the account balances, all right? Through August 31st, you have the budget versus actual, and you have the transaction list by date, all right? Any questions on any of that information? If not, we also have the treasurer. She just changed her hats from clerk to treasurer. Do you have anything that you wanted to add, Ms. Flock?
The town has paid their fourth quarter fire protection. As of today, 800 absentees have been sent out to the residents of the town of Sevastopol. Just a reminder that the postage is paid both ways on these ballots. The United States Postal Service made sure that the ballots made it to these 800 residents. So I'm very confident in the United States Postal Service that if you drop it in your mailbox, it will make it back to me. So if for whatever reason you do not feel comfortable sending it back, please call the office before dropping the ballot off, as our doors to the town hall are still locked due to COVID-19. In-person absentee voting will start October 20th. That's the Tuesday before, well, 2 weeks before voting, and it goes through October 30th. Regular business hours, 8 to 4:30.
Okay, thank you. All right, no questions on the financial reports. A motion to accept and place on file would be,
I'll make a motion to accept.
all right, motion from Derek, second by
Second.
Mark. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Approval of vouchers, bills, and claims. I think everybody's had a chance to sign those. We would need a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers, bills, and claims August 18th, 2020 through September 21st, 2020.
Motion by Mark, second by Derek, to approve vouchers, claims, and bills, August 18th through the 21st of 2020. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Oral committee reports, if there are any. Anybody have anything they want to share? All do have the minutes from the Plan Commission, excuse me, I don't know what I said, and the Sevastopol Communication and Technology, one from July 29th and the communication from August 4th. So we will put those on file. As you know, draft minutes do get placed out there on the internet, so people are aware of it. All right. License and permits, yes.
Are the
Sorry.
draft committee minutes on our website now also?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you wish them?
Oh,
not to be?
approved or the drafts?
The draft.
Okay,
It states
great.
draft on them.
No, I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
So, all right, and then what do we have here? We have, you have the building permits for the month, and you also have the recap from Door County inspections in there. A lot of garages and buildings, not a whole lot of houses. Although a friend of mine who's a mortgage person said that they are so backed up in the county that they're now talking about appraisals not getting done until November and December for stuff that closed, that should have closed in August. So I don't know, must be all good news. Okay. We're down to correspondence, which I think Amy just shared about the shared revenues. Also, you're gonna like this. We have an extra $30 in our treasury. From a court case, going back to what year, Amy?
1997?
1987. So,
97.
97. So, 23 years, this individual has held on to his $30 and has finally decided to pay us back. So apparently, he must be running for president or something, and he needed to clear up his finances. But, so we got $30, it's unbelievable.
And it was issued for a park violation, so I don't know if he was in the park after hours or whatever. I wasn't even here in 97.
I mean,
You were here in 97, or was it Carrie?
99.
99, was it Carrie then yet? Carrie Shorter?
well, I mean, that's kind of amazing. Then you get a copy of the progress billing for the county for the work that they have done.
Was that county or Scott?
This is the county.
That's
This
the
is-
county. We're
this
all
is-
done with Scott.
Yeah.
Oh. I thought Scott did Leist Road.
No, we had the.
Culvert.
Culvert.
Oh, this is Culvert?
This is Culvert,
Oh.
Walker, just a lot of different little patch and repair stuff.
So more maintenance, not construction.
Correct. They're just starting on Martin now, which will be
Yes.
our first. Bay Lake Regional Planning, it's their dues, and I did mention to Jeannie that these people could also help in grant writing, so we should use them as long as we're paying them extensively. City of Sturgeon Bay's Fire Department recap, notice, this Paul Wickman guy is really a problem.
I don't know what we're gonna do.
Linda. Okay, well, in that case, forget it. He's not a problem, his problems are solved. He's putting in some riprap. So, good luck, Paul. Notice the timber cutting, and that is it. So, a couple reminders, budget workshop is October 12th, and our next Board of Supervisors meeting is October 19th.
Plan Commission is having another meeting on Thursday, October 1st, right, Derek?
Yep.
At 7.
Okay, Plan Commission meeting. I will bring back, as discussed, the ordinance on Chapter 14. Anything else that anybody has?
Again, I want to emphasize the PSC webinar on Thursday, September 24th from 9 to 10 a.m. And the Door County Economic Development Corporation Zoom meeting on broadband at 6 p.m. on September 30th.
Have you got something on that, Jeannie, a little email note or something?
I can do that.
If not, or if you got one from them, just forward it out to us.
I will do what I can on that.
Okay, good enough.
Could we have update on Muscat? Because I believe Lily Bay was going to start in October. Will they have anything done by our October
You
meeting?
really, I had it on the agenda. I took it off. I was trying to give you all a break.
We got it for
Well,
this
I was
month.
just wondering what's happening, if
Okay,
anything.
it's okay. That's not a problem. I'd be happy to give it to
Yeah,
you.
and ironically, I received a call from Scott Whitman. He's writing a book about the fading of dairyland or whatever, and he included in this book will be an article on the Meyer class implement and dairy farms. So if anybody has any tidbits or stories about Meyer class, please contact Scott Whitman. I'll be happy to give you his phone number and email. If you-
Positive ones, Dan.
Positive ones, yeah.
When it was operating as a dairy farm and an implement business back in, I think he started in like 1947,
Wow.
so.
So here's where we're at with the Muscat property. We accepted the bids, and Lily Bay had contracted through AAA Asbestos, and he went out to do his inspection as required by the DNR, and the buildings were so bad that he couldn't go in them. And to make a long story short, he basically decided that he could not safely remove the asbestos. So, which was kind of disheartening because we thought the whole thing kind of got timed out. But what it ended up happening is the entire, all these structures are going to be knocked down and put in sealed containers and taken to an asbestos-approved landfill. And so what's going to happen is we're transferring the money that he was going to do to take the asbestos down, and it's going to go to transportation, because we still had to pay to have it put in the ground, but so the money's going to transportation. So the asbestos guy is still going to be on site as required by the DNR to observe, to make sure everything's done properly. The fire department and/or others may be there because they have to wet the structures as they collapse them, because that way you don't turn the asbestos into dust. So they're going to start the week of October 12th. They figure 3 to 4 days. Advance the dump landfill. We'll supply the containers, and Tim's guys will knock the buildings down. They will go in lined and covered containers, and Advance will haul them down to an asbestos pit or approved landfill for asbestos in Hilbert. And so we're taking all of the houses down. The mobile home will be taken intact to the transfer station. They're going to lift it. I think they're going to lift it out. The barn will be deconstructed by Beam Board out of Green Bay. They will take all the usable barn material. The milk house is going to be taken down because it's lined in asbestos. I guess from talking to AAA, they used asbestos like a woman would use flour in a kitchen. It's in everything back then. It's in caulking, it's in floor tile, it's in ceiling tile. It's just pervasive. So anyway, that's all going to get packed and hauled away. And the garage, which has 2 crushed cars in it under a pile of rubble, we can give the cars away, we can leave them in the field, or we can donate them to C&W. I think they're going to be donated, because they're not asbestos. So that's basically it. And so AAA will be there, Lily Bay. I think the fire department will help us with watering, and Advanced Disposal will cart it all out of there, and it's supposed to be done by the end of the month, and we should have, the only other thing we have to do is we have to fill the foundations. 2 of the homes have basements. So assuming that there is nothing like a full fuel tank in the basement, which we'll know, if there are people that come and empty the fuel, they recover it. Otherwise, we'll fill the hole so that we don't have a risk. We're not going below grade, and that'll be it. So the silo will be standing. So that'll be a project for somebody else.
Could put a cell tower on top of that.
We could put a cell
Instead,
tower on
they
top of
use
that
silos
silo.
for towers. Is our videographer going to be recording all of this as?
I've had a number of people suggest things such as a brat fry happening while it's happening.
Safe distance, social distancing at the mill,
Social
through the window.
We have
Right.
we have thought about getting a quarter barrel and having cocktails and, celebrating, so I'm very anxious to see the first shovelful.
Do we have a refreshment committee?
Pardon me?
Do we have a refreshments committee? We should probably get one.
I'm sure we could find somebody to volunteer. There must be some stale beer left from a Christmas party
I'm
somewhere.
sure there's
Some of
something.
Leo's stash has gotta be here somewhere.
All camp out at Sweet Willie's across the street, right?
There you go. So it sounds like it's gonna happen, and I talked to Steve Estes today about the hauling, and I've talked to everybody, I've talked to the DNR. We filed the notification with the DNR on, sent it out overnight,
We sent it out overnighted on Thursday.
and we haven't got the receipt back yet, but the DNR only opens its mail once a week because of COVID-19, so we
I thought you
overnighted
were
it.
joking.
No, they're serious. The representative from the DNR told me if we miss the Monday, then they have 10 days from the date of the postmark in which to do whatever they need to do. Otherwise, after 10 days, the contractor's free to begin. Well, in this case, he's not going to begin till the 12th anyhow, but we should be in good shape, I think. So, with that, a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Derek, a motion to adjourn, second by Mark. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.